Hi everyone, and welcome back. Hopefully by now you've already watched my overview introduction video. What we're going to talk about today or throughout this week is sort of the foundations of what are ethics, which we discussed were, rules and values for living. But where do these come from and what is the source of this? And it's really, really important within both your personal lives and your professional lives that you understand both where your sense of values and what is right and important comes from. But when there is a disagreement, understanding the opposing points of view can often be helpful in reaching a compromise or in arguing your case. So in the readings this week, particularly one takes a deontological approach or a Kantian ethics, which, as you can see here in the middle of the screen, it says something is bad if the world would be worse off when everyone did it. Okay, and this is a very kind of practical, and he talks a lot as you read through the chapter, talking about it's a very rational base. And as you'll see on the top here, it says autonomous ethics. So these are all about the individual. Our text did not talk about this, but as you'll see up here, we have heteronomous ethics. And this is something is good or bad because someone else, an outside force. So that we often see religious ethics. So it's biblical, it's God, the law, okay? But what we're going to be talking about is what are the logical reasons that people discover. So because the readings sort of talked about some of these, I wanted to give a brief overview of some other ethical standpoints. I'll try to share some additional resources as well, because I think it's interesting to see and think. And I think it's also to point out that very likely your ethics might come from a variety of sources. And again, I think it's important to know where you stand so that you can act in a corporate way. So egoism is a form of ethics, but what is good and what is good for me, okay? So I make a decision based on my personal well-being. This one is a form, however, a lot of people struggle with this one because we think, if it's good for me, what about the people around me? But this does not count that. Virtue ethics is what a person with good virtues would do. So Aristotle talked a lot about virtues. So honesty, integrity, responsibility. And as we look at different ethical codes, the formal codes from organizations, we'll see a lot of these virtues coming through. Then deontology, something is bad if the world would be worse off. So if everybody stole, if everybody killed, we'd be worse off. Consequentialism is what is good is that which is the greatest good for the greatest number. So this is really looking at, this is almost like a mathematical equation. So is it better to save one person, or is it better to save 100 people? What are the consequences? Okay, what are those checks and balances? Liberalism is about really stresses individual freedom. So how can we protect an individual's freedom without hurting others? And then social contract theory, John Rawls really looks at how can we should discuss with others, we should be in communication. And again, there's a lot, but I want you to think about, okay, are we concerned with the Kantian very, very rational side? Are we going to espouse our ethics? And again, some of this can come from other sources, such as religious beliefs or things that you are taught growing up. What are your values? And we need to think about where do these apply in the workforce? Because if, for example, somebody comes at their ethics from a very religious standpoint, I believe this is wrong because the Bible says so, and you are working in a secular place of employment, how are you going to justify what you're doing in those different contexts? So I think that's really, really important for everyone to understand. And like I said, this is a lot to grasp. If you have not ever formally studied ethics, it can be a little overwhelming, all these different terms. But again, the thing I like about this is we all have experience making a decision on a daily basis about if what we are doing is right or wrong. So I think we can all apply these. So this week you'll have your initial discussion question that asks you to kind of think about where you maybe fall on the spectrum, if some of these theories do you think, or these approaches would be easier to employ in the workplace or not. I also again remind you, please go ahead and introduce yourself on the thread. I'll be in and out on the discussion boards this week, popping in. If I come across any cool resources, I'll share them with you. I also encourage you, if you find a good resource, you can put it in the Ask an Instructor, Ask a Peer forum, and I think that will be great. So as a reminder, your initial discussion posts, that due date, I believe, is Wednesday night by midnight. So I encourage you, start reading, start thinking, and we'll go from there. So everybody have a great week, and I look forward to talking with you.